If you write a real estate book and nobody likes it, it's because they didn't want to read about real estate. I mean, you either want to read it or you don't want to read it, and it doesn't hurt anyone's feelings. But somehow if you put a character out there, somebody that's been living in your head, and you get that story out on paper and then someone doesn't like it, it's almost like them saying, "Well, I don't like you." And I don't know, it really scared me. So I didn't even try writing any fiction at all until 2017.
You are now listening to the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, the podcast for those who want to advance into the business of immortality through authorship, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer and author of the best-selling book, Stay the Course, Daily Performance 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success, Dom Brightman. And you're going to be getting some goodies today from the guest that's up next. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North podcast, and we got another super special, awesome human for you today, folks. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Another super special, awesome human. And you want to know what makes her super special, awesome human? She's actually from the great state of North Kakalaki. Oh, that's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. North Carolina, baby. It's like 2003. Take your shirt off and spin it like a helicopter, indeed, because today's guest in particular hails from the great state of North Carolina. She's a wife, mother, and grandmother who is an award-winning author, folks. That's right. So all the blue ribbons without being branded off. So let's give it up for Miss TB herself, the terrific and brilliant Teri Brown. How you doing today, Teri?
I'm doing great. Thank you for that. I feel like we could just walk away now. You've called me brilliant and great and amazing. I don't need much more.
Oh, but folks need to hear more of why you're freaking terrific and brilliant. That's right, indeed.
All right. So what would you like me to start with?
Well, I hear you hail from the land of fish grease at one point for like 3 days.
Yeah, so I lived in Athens, Greece, just as a small child. My dad was in the Air Force, and there was a joint Air Force base there. And so I was born in Athens, and I lived there until I was 2. And then we moved to Ohio, and I lived in Ohio until I was 15. And then I think my dad went through a midlife crisis. It's the only thing I can really understand, because I came home from school one day, the house was for sale, and we moved to North Carolina. And I hated him for it for about 6 months, and then I loved him for it. And I've been here ever since, and I absolutely love North Carolina. And now I get to live at the coast, which is fabulous because I walk along the coast and come up with the best ideas for stories.
Sweet, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. And funny enough, like with stories, I hear fiction, especially historical fiction, wasn't your original wheelhouse. You actually won a bunch of awards for some real estate books.
Yeah, I did. So I started working with small companies doing like content for their websites and articles, things along that line. Wrote a few ebooks for clients, and then was asked if I could start producing some real estate material. So I did that for several years, and though I enjoy it, and I still do it a little bit, I always had a fiction bug kind of in my head, and I wanted to be able to like get out there and let my characters free. A little bit nervous about it because, if you write a real estate book and nobody likes it, it's because they didn't want to read about real estate. I mean, you either want to read it or you don't want to read it, and it doesn't hurt anyone's feelings. But somehow if you put a character out there, somebody that's been living in your head, and you get that story out on paper and then someone doesn't like it, it's almost like them saying, "Well, I don't like you." And I don't know, it really scared me. So I didn't even try writing any fiction at all until 2017.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, 5-year anniversary.
Exactly right. Right. Took me 5 years. I started writing, and 5 years later, I got my debut novel came out in January, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow.
Yeah, that's right indeed. And considering the topic, I hear it's actually pretty timely.
Yes, so it's about 3 generations of Ukrainian women, starting in 1973 and going through the Russian invasion of 2014. And I've had people say to me, "How did you know? Or did you plan this?" And it's like, no, I mean, how could you know? I got the idea in 2016. I wrote the book in 2018, and I didn't get it accepted by a publisher until 2021. So it's been, in the making for several years. The timing was truly amazing. Not that you ever want something like this to happen to Ukraine, but for it to happen right as my book about Ukraine was coming out was just, yeah, kind of beyond coincidence. I don't know how many people believe in coincidences, but this one's a crazy one. So,
No, yeah, it's true. Funny enough, like listen to some of your past talks remind me one of our past guests, Tosca Lee, and how her most recent book actually launched, I believe, about a year before the pandemic hit in 2020. And folks are like, hey, so we know you got these codes in your books that readers can find out. Like, what kind of inside scoop information you have there about these pandemics? Like, why is this so closely aligned here? It's like fiction authors have secrets here.
yeah, and it's interesting because like I said, I've had people say, "How did you know?" Well, the answer is that what's going on right now in Ukraine with Russia, this is not new. This has been going on for generations. And the fact that they did it again really should not be so surprising to anyone. The timing is phenomenal, but the fact that it was done again really shouldn't be that surprising. So, I just happened to come up with the right topic at the right time. And now I'm hoping that, maybe Oprah or Reese Witherspoon or someone will recognize that it's at the right time and pick it up for me. I think that would be fabulous, don't you?
Oh yeah, that's like every author's dream come true, you know.
Yeah.
Be like Robert
Yeah.
Kiyosaki, like Oprah interview, best book of all time for decades to come.
Yeah.
Set
I mean,
for
all you
life.
have to do is have one of them mention it and you're gold. That's fantastic. So,
That's right. It'll really be the business of immortality then, right?
exactly. Exactly.
Oh my goodness. So my goodness. So with all these characters in your head, and if I'm not mistaken, your original desire was to become an author since the age of 5, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's correct. So as a little girl, I wanted to be an author. But you have to remember at the same time, I also wanted to be a brain surgeon and an Olympic ice skater. So, I figure I got 1 out of 3. That's pretty good for a 5-year-old to, glom on to what it was they wanted. But what's interesting is that even though I wanted to be a writer, by the time I got to college and was trying to determine what I wanted to be, I never even considered writer because I didn't think that writing and profession were like you could do that. You had to be something, like an accountant or a lawyer or a teacher or a nurse. I didn't think writing was actually a profession. So I didn't pursue it. And then I had children and I homeschooled my kids and life just got really busy and it wasn't until 2000 that I started writing at all, and even then it wasn't as an author as much as it was just a content creator. So, yeah, it's been a long time coming from that first thought at about 5 that I wanted to be an author until I was, what, 55, 53, 53 before I actually said, yes, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an author. So,
So all the self high fives. That's right. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness. So with historical fiction being the first genre of choice, are there any other genres you think you might tackle in the future? Because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of ideas in that head that are hidden somewhere, or probably documented somewhere, waiting to come out into the light.
oh yeah, I have a lot of characters that run around in my head. I tell people, don't worry, I don't need to be medicated. I recognize that it's just my thoughts. It's nothing more. So yeah, I actually have two children's stories in mind. Both of them came to, well, my husband and I rode across the United States on a tandem bicycle, 3,102 miles.
Wow.
And when you're riding for that long, 40 miles a day for 72 riding days, plus the rest days in between, you have a lot of time to think. And there were a couple of things that I saw on the ride that reminded me, that just gave me these ideas for children's stories. So I have two children's stories in mind. I have a kind of inspirational story in mind based on this ride that I took. So it isn't really about cycling as much as it's about the things you learn about life when you decide to go out there and do an adventure that's bigger than you are. I'm a desk jockey, so the idea that I rode over 3,000 miles on a bicycle is just, you know, crazy. And I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about people, and I learned a lot about my spirituality, and I just learned a lot out there on the road. So I have a book that I hope to, I've actually got it like started, but I don't know where to go with it. So it's sitting and percolating right now. I have a rom-com idea, and the character is a woman who is well, she's going through menopause. And so any women out there who, feel like they're in that crazy point where they don't know what their body's doing, and they have hot flashes and memory loss and all the other things that go with it, they'll laugh at the idea that I've got a rom-com idea going on in there. I also have a young adult dystopian type idea. Who knows where any of these are going? I do have another historical fiction that was just accepted by a publisher and should be out in either January or February. So yeah, that's high five, right? And I have another historical fiction idea in my head, and I have a writer's retreat coming up at the end of June, and I intend to try to get that one out of my head. So I have a lot of ideas. I don't have as much time as I do ideas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Darn time, always at it. It's like, hey, buddy,
Yeah,
you
in
feel like
fact,
you're
if you
working
know
the.
of a yeah, if you know of a way to give me about 10 more hours a day, that would be great, because I could use them.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe finding the vampire's castle, become a vampire, come out at
Think?
night. Like, nah, actually that won't work because you won't be able to work during the day. And summer
Oh
months, well, you're
no, yeah,
screwed.
that especially living here at the beach, that would be really bad. No.
But that's freaking awesome. So congrats. Another publisher picked up another one of your historical fiction
Yeah.
novel ideas. Indeed. And heck, probably enough after we're done here, probably have to link you up with a wonderful lady. She was a guest on the podcast last year, Pat Duckworth. She's actually a menopause for women expert in the workplace. So she's out in the UK.
That would be
And
great. Yeah.
yeah, she actually has an idea for a novel too where it's based off of her friends, three women going through menopause at the same time. She has a podcast about it too, so
You
just
see,
the
and
conversation.
just those conversations, it's interesting whenever I'm talking with a group of women and I say, so I kind of have this rom-com idea and the main character's going through menopause, all the women immediately start to laugh. And that's all I've said. All I said was, and the woman's going through menopause, and all the women start to laugh. And I think it's a comedy before I say anything. Because that's the way it feels. That's the way menopause feels. It feels like just one, well, when you're going through it, it feels more like a horror film than a comedy, but looking back on it, it seems awfully comedic. So
Oh, hey, hot women rock, right?
our own personal summers, that's the way it goes.
There you go. Oh god. So my goodness, so with all those wonderful genres and Teri loving the kids, that's right, all these wonderful genres. So that means a big, giant conglomerate in the future where you're gonna clone yourself. It sounds like probably with all these
I'm going to
ideas.
have to, yes. Yes. There's going to have to be the mom and grandma clone, the writer clone, the wife clone, the I just want to have fun clone, all of this.
Oh man. But my goodness, so did some bike riding across the whole US of A. My goodness, my goodness. And you mentioned spirituality too, so how was that experience as well?
I think for me, there were so many times that we needed help. My husband and I did this pulling a trailer, camping most of the way. Sometimes we were able to stay in motels. And there were times where you needed help. The road was tore up for 10 miles and there was no way you were going to be able to get across it on a bicycle. They had, they had the trucks with the flashing lights, cars going 10 miles an hour behind it through this horrible construction zone. Well, you just can't be out there on a bicycle in that. My husband had a low sugar incident where he passed out on the side of the road. Those are scary things. And within moments of finding out we needed help, we would get help. And I know that there were people praying for us because I would ask them to, please send up prayers for, and then I would name whatever difficulty we were having. I kept a blog, and so I had people that were kind of keeping up with what we were doing. And time and time and time again, those prayers were answered almost faster than you could get them out of your mouth. The time my husband had this incident, we were in a parking lot and I had walked inside. I knew he was, I'd gotten him. He was no longer passed out, but he was, you know, just kind of crazy. You could see he wasn't really focusing his eyes. And so I had him sitting, I had him eating some chocolate, it was like, let's get you some sugar. And I'd walked inside and no one there had a truck or could do anything. And I just kind of like threw up one of those really quick prayers, you've got to help me. This is, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I can't push my husband and a bicycle and our loaded trailer. And I mean, I've got to get help. And as soon as I walked out the door, in pulled a pickup truck that was an extended cab. And the person that got out was a woman, which made it very easy for me to approach. And I walked up to her and I said, so my husband has had a problem. We have a hotel already and it's 4.5 miles from here, but I can't get here and I need someone who can take me. Would that person be you? And she looked at me and she, you have to remember, this was the summer of COVID, by the way. It was the 2020 summer. So
Ouch.
she kind of looks at me and she said, you're not going to hurt me, are you? And I looked down at myself. I'm in a pair of padded shorts. I said, no, I'm not going to hurt you. And she said, yes, I can help you. And 15 minutes later, we were in a hotel. I had relatives that I had not seen since I was 4. I mean, a little girl. I didn't know who they were. My mom knows them and they know who I am. They lived within half an hour of us and came and picked us up and let us stay at their house for 4 days while my husband recovered. I mean, time and time again. And so, there was that. Then there's just the beauty, the sheer beauty of this world. And I'm thinking of, we were in Idaho and we were going through the Loxa River Valley. There was a park, some scenic river, whatever. It was gorgeous. I bet I have 300 pictures because every time we would go around a bend, I would say, stop. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And I would take this picture and, a minute and a half later, stop. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. It was amazing. It was beauty like you have never seen. And when we were in Montana, one night I woke up about probably 1 a.m. and looked out at the sky and the stars were so close. You felt like you could just reach out and pull them to you. And the Milky Way was so distinguishable. And up in the sky was the Neowise comet. And it was huge and visible and just amazing. And when you see things like that, you realize that you're just a tiny speck in a great, big, huge plan. So that's what it did for me.
Sweet, that's what I'm talking about. Indeed, that's right, indeed. That's right. Gotta love family reunions. It's like I haven't seen you since you were yay big, literally.
Yes. I haven't seen you since. And he was telling me, he said, "Do you remember that time your dad gave us your bicycle for our little girl?" And I'm thinking, no,
Yeah.
I don't remember that at all. But it's we had a connection, and like I said, they let us stay for 4 days. It was enough to get my husband kind of feeling I, he had had a low sugar incident, and his daughter thinks that it was because of just exhaustion, that we had just pushed ourselves too hard, too long. He needed a little more time to get himself back together, and there we were. We had that time. And not only did we have the time, but it was in a wonderful environment where people were excited to see you, and they were producing massive amounts of food for us to eat, and it was just exactly what we needed. And that happened over and over. And then on top of that, on this ride, now we did it for ourselves, but we also did it to raise money for Toys for Tots. And by the end of the Toys for Tots campaign, we had raised $34,000. So it just the whole trip was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Ah, there we go. It ain't about NFT, it's about TFT, baby. The Toys for Tots, baby. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Heck, that probably was a good reason why all that good stuff happened, since it was for a cause. So that's interesting. So a whole bike ride for a fundraiser for Toys for Tots?
Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah. My husband wanted to do this since 1976. This was
Oh,
he saw a group of college kids do it. He was in the military. He always laughs and says that his commander wouldn't give him 3 months off to go, right across the United States. And he and I met 4 years ago. And while we were dating, he was telling me about this, desire to ride across the United States on a bicycle. And I had been wanting to have some big adventure because, I was empty nested. My kids had all grown. And I was kind of looking at my life like, I've done a lot in terms of raising my children. And I felt like it was a very valuable experience. But what's next? Like, where am I going from here? What am I going to become? And I wanted to do something that my kids would say, "No way, mom, you can't do that." So I just looked him straight in the eyes and I said, "Is this something that you're planning to actually do? Or are you going to go to the grave having never done it?" And he said, "No, I really want to do it." And I said, "Count me in." So even while we were dating, we started planning this trip to go across the United States. So, for me, it was a whole different purpose than his. He's one of these people. He's done triathlons and marathons and hang gliding and you just name it, cycle racing. He's done all of that. And then there's me. Don't throw a ball in my direction. And I sit at a desk all day, and so this was huge for me. But we decided we needed it to be more than about us, and that's when we work for Toys for Tots here in our community, and we know what kind of things that they need. And we figured that if we could raise that money, then we'd be able to get the children what they needed. And as it turns out, we were able to get every child in our 2-county area that asked for a bicycle that year. And on top of it, every organization that asked for our help, we were able to help because of that money that was raised. So it was really good. It was probably one of the best Christmases I've ever had because I knew how many kids had a good Christmas that year.
sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's the good news about a power couple for real, Encourage each other to really embrace their dreams for real and not just tear them down and be like, yeah, like, nah, let's just be some failure turtles. Let's go to the grave and be sad like I never did this thing. It's like, hey, so what if I'm 30, 40 years older? Let's still do this thing I wanted to do when I was in my 20s. I still got it.
Right. So my husband was 69 when we went across the United States, and he tells people, you do anything you want. And then when we came back from that trip, I really did believe in myself more than I had ever believed in myself before. Prior to meeting Bruce, my husband, I had been in an emotionally abusive relationship for 14 years. And that really tears a person down. And I thought that I was a lot better, like I had, beat back my demons. But on the trip, a lot of them came out again. You start to doubt yourself and your abilities. But by the time the trip was over, I knew that I could do anything I set my mind to. I rode across the United States on a bicycle. I can do anything. And it was when I came home from that trip that I became brave enough to take the manuscript, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, and get it out there to publishers. And 6 months later, someone picked it up, and, I've been going ever since. So, the trip did a lot of things for a lot of people, and it did a lot for me too.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That confidence, baby. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. She went from 4-pack ab confidence to 8-pack abs, y'all. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. You can grill some freaking steaks on her confidence now, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. No apologies to the vegans for that reference. So, my goodness, so since you've been on these podcasts and you've been promoting the good work of writing and encouraging others to write their magical books, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often?
I can't think of a question. I've been asked a lot of interesting questions. I know a question that I don't like getting, which is, what is your favorite book? And I hate that question because I don't have one. I have a favorite, like, book of the day or of the month, or maybe it's the last one I read, but I love reading so much that the idea of having a favorite or a favorite author, it's like, can I give you a list? I don't do favorites, so that's hard for me. No, I can't think of a question.
Funny enough, I haven't even asked a book question in like 300 episodes, so I guess it's time to ask it again. So, what are your top 3 favorite recent books that you've been reading?
Okay, so it's interesting. I have a lot of different categories of books that I enjoy reading. I absolutely loved A Gentleman in Moscow, which is interesting because the title did not interest me and the cover did not interest me. And it was a thick book with tiny print, and my eyes aren't real good. And so I knew I was going to have to use my glasses. And I just thought, ugh. But it was a book club book. And I thought, fine, I'll read it. Well, it turned out to be one of my favorite books that, in a long time. So I really enjoyed that book. Another favorite, I read a memoir that I really loved, and it was called Love's Journey Home. And that was really, it's just come out. It came out in May. I really enjoyed that book. And then I enjoyed a book. This one was Carry On Jeeves. It's like written in 1920. And I don't know why I liked it so much, but it's this gentleman's gentleman, and he is really smart, and the rich man that employs him is not. And he's always kind of pulling one over on this guy. And I laughed, and I had tears rolling down my eyes. People were looking at me like I was crazy because, all of a sudden I would just burst out laughing. And that book is, 100 years old. So I have such a wide range of things I enjoy reading. I think that's why I have trouble bringing it down to, so what are you reading? And it's like, well, what am I not reading? That would be an easier question.
She's like, I'm totally not reading rom-com. It's a lie. Let me stop. Oh, man. So, speaking of magical books, if your wonderful book was a food, what would it be and why?
It would be chocolate. I mean, and why? Well, I mean, because chocolate's the best thing ever. It goes with everything. I mean, essentially, if you can't put it with bacon, then you can put it with chocolate. So it goes with just about everything, and almost everyone loves it. So that would be my book. It goes with everything and everyone loves it.
Ah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right, indeed. Chocolate is encouraged here for obvious reasons. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. There's no hesitation either. She was prepared for that one.
Well, it's funny. I wasn't, but I thought, well, what food would it be? Well, chocolate's my favorite food, so it has to be chocolate. That's, chocolate's its own food group.
That's right, it's good for you. That's right. The darker the better, I hear. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're at 25 again, but you're still in 2022 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, I would tell myself, do not let anyone at all tell you that you are not worthwhile. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams. Do not let anyone or anything get in your way and stop you, because you are capable and worthwhile, and you've got lots of things that you're going to accomplish. So don't let some idiot tell you otherwise and believe him. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's right indeed. Don't believe them idiots, y'all. That's right. They're idiots for a reason.
That's and it's funny because those kind of people come into your life, and somehow, without you even recognizing it, you start to take in and hear those things, and you begin to believe them, and later you look back and you think, how did that happen, and why did I let that happen? So yeah, if I could talk to my younger self, I would say, figure out the magic bullet that kept that away so that you didn't allow that to into your life at all.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. And good thing is, those idiots usually disappear in physical form anyway, every now and then. At least the ones that are persistent anyway.
That's true. That's true.
That's right indeed. That's why the social media block button's a great button.
Use it wisely.
But hey, it's all good. I know folks need to press the allow button on all the stuff you're doing, so for the folks need to do just that and keep up with your journey and all the stuff that you got cooking up in the writing brain of yours. What's the best way for folks to do so?
Well, if you go to my website, which is www.terimmbrown, and that's Teri with one R.com, you'll see all of my social media, and I'm out there on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I even have a TikTok, though I'm not sure what I'm doing with it yet. I'm still getting that figured out. I also have a newsletter that you can follow, and if you sign up for the newsletter, I'll give you a list of the 10 historical fictions you've never heard of that will bring you to tears. And you can also listen to the podcasts that I've been on. I have a list of those. And I'm a co-host now of the Writers Lounge podcast, and you can listen to that every other Monday night.
Ah, there we go. TGIT on the TGIM. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Yes, indeed. She's co-hosting a podcast now, baby. That's right, indeed. The Writers Lounge. That's right. That's right, indeed. If you're on your Hemingway swag, pull it out, That's right. Pull out your Alky Halky. And then holly your way to the wonderful show notes, indeed. And listen to Teri and her co-host on the show, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right. That's right indeed. All the puns intended with that one. That's right indeed. So there you have it, folks. Follow Teri, and we'll tip all the wonderful stuff in the show notes for you to do so. So any parting words before we close up shop, Teri?
I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank you for having me on the show. I want to thank the readers who've read my book. I want to thank readers in general for reading books, because if there weren't readers, then authors would have very little to do. Oh, and I do want to say, I forgot to say that right now, because of Ukraine, I am donating a portion of the proceeds of my book to Ukraine. So, it's a good way to not only get a good book and learn a little bit about what's happening with Ukraine right now, but you'll also be donating to help them as well.
Thanks a bunch for tuning in and setting aside some of your time to listen to this wonderful podcast, Going North. If you really enjoyed what you heard, do me a solid and share this with your network and someone that you care about that would get something out of it too. And be sure to subscribe to hear more, and heck, even check out the backlog if you would like, because there are hundreds of episodes to choose from, and they just keep getting better and not butter.